This is how you actually get rich. After asking over 7,000 supercar owners, what do you do for a living? These are the best tips and tricks I've learned from them on how to become wealthy. So the first thing that I see from supercar owners is that they almost always own real estate. About 90% of them own either commercial or residential real estate. The wealthiest people I interview, those that are in Koenigseggs, Bugattis, and other hypercars, are almost always in commercial real estate. The second thing that I see from supercar owners is that they almost always own their own business. Being your own boss gives you unlimited earning potential, and there is a cap on how much money you can make working for someone else. This, however, does not mean that working for someone else will not get you wealthy. About a third of supercar owners I interview have high annual salaries. Usually these fields include medical, so I get a lot of doctors in my videos, engineers, computer scientists, lawyers is really common, especially with Aston Martins for some reason. And surprisingly, there's actually a lot of plumbers that I interview. I think a lot of people overlook trade school as an option to make a lot of money, and electricians are included in that as well. The third commonality that I see with supercar owners is that they almost always invest their money. Like really, there's almost nobody that I interview that is not in at least some form of investment. Inflation will eat away at your money every single day. The most common investments that I hear from supercar owners are stock market, private equity, venture capital, crypto, and real estate. So one of the more risky investments that I just listed is cryptocurrency, but I cannot deny the fact that about 5% of supercar owners that I interview, and sometimes crazy cars, got wealthy completely from cryptocurrency. So this might be like a lucky poll because obviously like 2019 through 2021 had some crazy crypto gains, but usually what they tell me is that Ethereum and Bitcoin led to their success. So my fourth point, and it's kind of going off of the third point with investing, is that cash is trash. It's nearly impossible to become wealthy without compound interest working on your side. And that obviously comes from investments, not money sitting in your bank account. In the majority of developed countries, and this includes the US, a 2% inflation goal is set. So literally the government's saying we want inflation to be at 2%. In the last year to 2 years after COVID, this was up to 6, 7, 8%. So that money, if it's not invested, is literally sitting in your bank account just wasting away. My fifth point is that get rich quick does not exist. Anyone that says so is either a liar or they got lucky. Most of the people I interview actually got wealthy over a very long period of time in low risk investments. If you invest in the S&P 500, which is an index that tracks the 500 largest companies in America, the average return since its inception has been 10%. Historically, this doubles your money every 7 years. So in my first point, I mentioned that about 90% of these supercar owners invest in real estate. And often what they tell me is that real estate gains can be a lot slower, but the payoff can be a lot larger. Also though, the risk can be a lot greater and you can end up losing a lot of money in your real estate investments. Something like the S&P 500 hasn't done historically. So the rule of 72 is a financial tool that a lot of people use to calculate how long it takes to double your money. Basically, you take 72 and divide by what percentage you're expecting to get. So we'll use the S&P 500 as an example, which is 10%. 72 divided by 10 gives you 7.2, which essentially means that in 7 years, you'll double your money. You can actually swap this out with different interest rates. So say you expect to make 8% return annually on your investment, you do 72 divided by 8, and then you can get the amount of years it takes to double your money. So basically compound interest, in my opinion, is the 8th wonder of the world. Number 6 is do not buy a supercar. This may sound counterintuitive, especially for my account, but what I mean by that is do not buy things that you cannot comfortably afford. So lifestyle inflation is a huge wealth killer. Basically what it means is that you spend more money, the more money you make. So keeping your spending low, even as you start making more money later in life, is key here. Essentially act like you're broke even if you're wealthy. So Jay-Z has a quote that I love, and it's that if you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. We see this super often with influencers that get a lot of money really quickly. You have like the Island Boys that are now broke. You have a ton of celebrities, child stars that get a bunch of money really early. They don't know what to do with it. They don't invest it. They don't seek a financial advisor. And then they lose their money really quickly. You could literally be making $20, $30 million a year. And if you're spending all that money, you're just as broke as somebody who doesn't have all that money. Number 7 is you should be aiming your focus on earning more money, not cutting down your spending. So people often get really caught up in cost cutting by taking away really small things. Like there's only so much money you can save by taking away things like coffee or your Netflix subscription. So there's really 2 main keys from what I hear from supercar owners on how to make more money. The first one is frequent job hopping, and a lot of people say the sweet spot here is every 2 years. This will typically beat out small incremental raises from your original employer. So if you're not in a spot to job hop frequently, like say you have a family or a bunch of kids, salary negotiations are the other way to increase your earning potential. So my number 8 point, and it kind of goes off of number 7, is focus on the big things. If you're gonna focus on cutting expenses, make sure it's the big two expenses, which is housing and transportation. So once again, cutting things like coffee or your Netflix subscription is not gonna even make a dent in your expenses as compared to your transportation and your housing. So a lot of people overspend on things like cars and they have huge monthly payments or really expensive leases, or their houses are way too expensive for what they can actually afford. So if you're dropping like $1,500 a month more than you can afford on like a Hellcat and then like a really nice place with a balcony, cutting out small things, which is where a lot of people focus, is not even gonna matter at all. So my 9th point is college is an investment. College can be a great thing for some people or a nightmare for other people. A lot of supercar owners I meet will say one or the other. A lot of them will say, I didn't go to college, screw college, college is the worst. If you go to college, you're not gonna make money. And a ton of people say, I went to college, everyone should go to college. If you don't go to college, you cannot be successful. So a lot of people forget that college is an investment and does not guarantee wealth. People my age are getting absolutely screwed into their 30s, 40s, 50s with college debt. And what a lot of people don't realize when they're 18 and they're signing up for some crazy college with a crazy interest rate and not fully understanding what they're getting themselves into is that college is not bankruptable. So unlike other forms of debt where you can declare bankruptcy, get everything scrubbed and follow that whole process, because you actually gained an asset, which is a college education, whether you finished it or not, the US sees this as something that you cannot bankrupt yourself out of. People end up paying more in interest than the actual original loan that they took out. You can even see them getting their wages completely garnished on each check that they make. So I'm not entirely aware of how it works in other countries, but it's crazy that in the US, when you're 18 years old, you can basically look at a loan, even though you have no life experience, no work experience, and say, hey, I'm just gonna borrow $80,000 in debt. I should be fine. It's actually insane. Like I'm shocked that it's even a thing. So basically my biggest tip for people is, say you're 18, 19, and you have no clue what you want to do in life. Do not be afraid to wait on going to college if you're interested in going to college at 26, 27, 28. It really does not matter. And for some reason, there's this weird pressure on people to go to college right after they graduate high school. What a lot of people in the supercar world tell me is that they also went to trade school and made a lot more money over the course of their life doing so. So the average age for people in trade occupations is a lot higher than other fields. People like plumbers, electricians, a lot of them actually retired during COVID. So there's a huge demand for these jobs and not enough supply, and their salaries are just gonna keep going up. So my 10th point, and this one is super important, is build credit early. So increasing your credit at a very young age is the best way to lock in low interest rates for your future self. Dave Ramsey is completely wrong on this issue. I don't care what he says. He says credit's awful and that you should pay for everything in cash and only buy what you can afford up front. There's good credit and there's bad credit. Good debt and bad debt. Credit cards are great when they are used responsibly. And I say responsibly because obviously you want to pay off your entire credit card bill in full every single month. Do not incur a balance and do not ever pay credit card companies any form of interest. So I got my first credit card when I was 18, like literally the day I turned 18, I was like, I want a credit card. I didn't like fully understand how beneficial this would be for myself. Right now I'm sitting, you know, not to brag or anything, but around an 800 credit score, and I'm 26, and I did this basically by paying off my credit card bill in full every single month, and actually adding a ton of different credit cards for different categories of spending. A lot of people call this credit card hacking. So basically I have one credit card in my wallet for when I get gas, when I go to the grocery store. Basically for anything that I need, I'm maximizing my points. So obviously you don't need to have a ton of credit cards. I think just having one totally works if you just treat it like a debit card essentially and just pay it off in full every single month. But adding more can totally help you as well. This can be perfect for when you're older and you want to buy your first house, buy a car, and not get stuck at like an 11 or 12% interest rate. So I do interview some people that are 65 and up, so I won't have a whole point on how important Roth and 401k contributions are. Obviously, if you have an employer that has a 401k contribution, getting that match is something that's really helpful. And obviously maximizing your Roth and basically taking advantage of those tax deductions can be super helpful. So obviously this doesn't completely apply to this video because most of the people that I interview are not at that withdrawal age, so they haven't been able to lock into those savings, but it's definitely something you should keep in mind. So when I originally made this account, obviously I was into cars, but I was also super fascinated with how people become wealthy. Like I was literally wondering when I was 21, 22, when I first made the account, how do I personally afford a supercar? Like that's why I walked up to somebody and said, what do you do for a living in the first place? So I have a background in finance. I went to school for finance. I went to University of Arizona. I graduated in 2020, and I was actually working in finance right when I made my account in Dallas, Texas. What I wanted to do my whole life was become a financial advisor, and that's what I was on track to do. I was getting my brokerage licenses over at Charles Schwab. So that's kind of like how this all ties together for me. Obviously, I'm super passionate about finance. It's just been crazy that I've been doing this for 4 total years. I probably asked like 6, 7, 8,000 people. It's kind of hard to keep track of how many people I asked, but I figure every year it's like 1,500 people or something like that. So I've learned a lot from a lot of these wealthy people. I think there's like also a stigma with wealthy people that a lot of them are mean or they don't want to talk to you. But I found that a lot of them really want to share their advice. And that's basically what I've been doing with this account, is to have me as a window into interviewing wealthy people so that you sitting at home can watch some of these videos and hopefully learn something. That's basically been the goal of this account since I've started. I have the privilege of being able to live in an area that has a lot of supercars like LA, and in Dallas there was a ton of supercars. And I know a lot of people in like more rural areas or in different parts of the world don't have access to these people. So I hope that throughout the years, you guys have been able to pick up on some of the knowledge that I've been trying to pass on. Let me know if you want me to do more of these style of videos. I typically don't do these like long form sit down ones. Normally I'm kind of behind the camera, but if you like it, let me know in the comments. I won't ask you to smash that subscribe button because it's cringe, and I'll see you later.